All right, viewers and listeners, Meathook Jim here, still surviving the lockdown. But you can see three other guys on the screen with me, and we're going to start to my left, not my video left, but my left, Mr. John Orlando. John, how's it going?
It's going well. I hope everybody is being safe and healthy. And you made me laugh, Jim. We're surviving the lockdown like it's the TNA pay-per-view. Is that
little wordplay there?
You can tell he's a TNA fan, huh?
Oh, wow.
I admit it. And hiding, being a smart mouth there underneath Mr. John Orlando is Donnie Hoover, my co-host. Donnie, how's it going?
Oh, we're doing good. We're staying safe, staying healthy. That's all we can do.
All right. And our special guest on this episode of WrestleHorror, he's the trainer of champions, Cody Hawk. Cody, how are you?
Hello. How's it going? Welcome to quarantine hell.
And, speaking of quarantine hell, I mean, how are you making it? I mean, I know how some of the other wrestlers are, but how are you coping with all this, social distancing and stuff?
Well, honestly, I'm still essential personnel, so I'm still working every single day. My other half, Shauna, she's still essential personnel, so she's still working every day. So for me, not a whole lot has changed except wrestling is gone, and I go through a whole lot of hand sanitizer.
Yeah, wrestling is gone. What's your take on all the promotions or the bigger promotions doing the shows with no crowd, no audience? What's your take?
You got to do what you got to do, man. And truth be told, as soon as this little bit of a ban gets lifted, we're going to be shooting empty arena matches too. It's unfortunately that's what we got to do, but I don't see us having shows in May. And if they really start backing off on this ban a little bit, and I can get Skeleton Crew in there to start filming empty arena matches, we're going to be doing the same. But I tell you what, like it really shows you who is good at what they do, and they can get in the ring and still perform even though there isn't a live crowd there.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. It's a special type of performer that can do it without feeding off the crowd to get the job done.
Yeah. I've been lucky because we have our own building, and because me and Shauna, are a couple and we live in the same house, we've still been able to go to the building fairly regular and not lose everything and stay on track. And, and so we go down there and spend an hour, and we just have an hour-long match, and we're already like in the mindset of, this is how it's going to be for a little while. And in order for our company to survive, we have to be able to pay the rent on the building, and to pay the rent on the building, we have to produce some sort of content that somebody will buy. As of up to this point, we've done everything through YouTube, but here real soon going forward, we're going to be switching over, I think, to Patreon, so that, we unfortunately, we have to draw money from somewhere, right. And till we can, and I was just at the building today doing measuring 6 foot, that's every 5 chairs. So that drops our capacity from 225 to 40. Wow. So, even if we could get people in tomorrow at 6 foot 6 foot distancing, that drops our capacity to 40 people. And, that's not gonna pay the bills.
No, gosh, no. And I'm familiar with the arena, and that definitely is not going to pay the bills. But
I have a quick question, if I may interrupt for a second.
Go ahead.
Cody, you've mentioned something that I'm completely ignorant of. Are there a lot of promotions going the route of putting stuff out on Patreon?
I don't know if there are or aren't. It's just something that we've kind of been playing around with.
Okay. Okay.
To this point, I just assumed Patreon was something that a lot of the girl wrestlers were doing to make extra money. Shauna, she started up a page maybe about a month ago, and she's up to about, I don't know, 15, 20 subscribers, and she's got about $350 to $400 a month coming in now from that.
Wow.
So the way Patreon works is that there's different tiers. So a $5 tier, $10 tier, and a $15 tier. So we were thinking about doing $5 gets you Shockwave for the whole month. $10 gets you exclusive backstage content. $15 gets you our bi-monthly pay-per-view backstage content.
Nice.
Well,
I
that's
don't
a
know
great
if it'll
idea.
work.
That is a fantastic idea.
I don't know if it'll work. It's something we're going to try. We're going to roll it out for a few months, see if we can't make some money. If we don't, then, nothing ventured, nothing gained. We'll just go back to YouTube then.
Well, I think that Patreon might be you've got the FGW faithful, I know.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be willing to pay to watch you guys.
That's what I was telling Brian, the owner. It was like, man, if we could get 100 people paying $15 a month to watch our product, that pays our rent, and then we can survive and keep going. So, that's our goal.
I think you guys can do it based on the crowds and the crowd reactions that I've seen in the arena and how much interaction there is going between the fans and the talent. I think it'll work for you guys, and I hope it does.
Yeah, well, like I said, nothing ventured, nothing gained. We'll give it a go and see how it pans out. And, if it works for us, I think that'll be something that you see a lot of people converting over to. And if it doesn't work out for us, then somebody's going to laugh at us, and we'll be the boob that tried it out and failed.
Hey, you don't know unless you try it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Hey, a question I have though, when I hear what you're saying and stuff, because you have the training school and you run the wrestling show in the same building. How does that work if they say, that you're allowed to start opening your doors back up to do the training, and are you going to follow the guidelines of what Governor DeWine says on that, and do your training and your shows on Fridays, or are you going to follow the OAC guidelines and what they're saying? Because I think they're saying June.
Whatever the athletic commission says. We got to, we're in good standings with them, and we're not trying to mess that up. So,
Right.
Obviously, if DeWine says you can do what you can do, but the athletic commission says no, then we're not gonna ruffle those feathers. There's too many other companies out there that are breaking the rules, and I'm not going to be one of those people.
Yeah,
so.
I was just curious if it was a different, because you're doing the training school as well. I didn't know if that affected.
I think that as far as the training goes, I'm not sure how much the athletic commission has jurisdiction over the training.
Right.
Because we're in the complex that we're in is classified as a gym. So I would assume when they open gyms back up, which I think is the 1st of May, that technically opens back up our training school.
Right.
So if that's the case, then like I said, I can get a skeleton crew in there. I don't have to have anyone manning my cameras. I can run music and do the lights for everything. All I need is 2 wrestlers and a referee, and I can schedule people in. Hey, your match is at 7, your match is at 7:30, your match is at 8. And we'll just shoot the matches, roll the people out, sanitize the ring, and then do it again.
Nice. Good plan.
Has the quarantine, Cody, maybe caused some would-be potential students from joining the school, or do you even know if that even occurred?
I honestly don't know how much it's affected. I just was in contact with somebody like less than a few days ago that was hitting me up about training. So, I still got people inquiring about it, but as of right now, I'm just like, hey, check back with me in a month.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, let's steer away from the current global situation, as a lot of people put it, and let's talk about Cody Hawk. First of all, who inspired you to become a wrestler, Cody?
Well, when I was a child, I used to watch wrestling every Saturday morning with my dad. We'd watch, I don't know, I think it was NWA was on at like noon, and WWF was on at like 1. And we'd watch those two shows back to back every Saturday. Super big into it back then. But then eventually wrestling went off of the regular television, and it was only on cable. And I lived way out in the boonies, so we didn't have cable. And so from probably like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old up till I moved out, I didn't see wrestling. There was no wrestling anymore. It was just forgotten about. And then, I don't know, I want to say maybe about 95, I happened to stumble upon Saturday night's main event, it was the WCW show on Saturday night. And I happened to see Hulk Hogan come through the curtain, and I was just like, "Holy crap, Hulk Hogan's still wrestling!" And and I started watching, pretty religiously every Saturday, and then Nitro started up, and Raw was getting going good, and and I was just, I was a fan. I was always a fan. I just had kind of gotten lost. I don't know that I'd say that there was any one person that like inspired me to be a wrestler. It was just that I really loved it, and I thought, man, this is just like a childhood dream. I mean, what kid back in the '80s didn't tear a T-shirt off in his bedroom and pretend like he was Hulk Hogan?
Right.
So Hulk Hogan was like, the guy for me. But I was also a big fan of Magnum TA and Ric Flair and the Horsemen and Sting. I actually, back in that time frame, liked the NWA product better than I liked WWE. Just it seemed way more real to me. So then later on, once I joined the wrestling business, then guys like Eddie Guerrero and, dare I say it, Chris Benoit, like those guys sort of inspired me, because once I learned how wrestling actually worked, it was like, wow, these guys are the workhorses. Hulk Hogan, that's your money maker that you draw money and advertise with, but you fill in the rest of the card with the rest of these guys that can work their asses off, tell good stories, have great matches, and just amaze you as a fan.
Okay.
So what was the next step, Cody? So you were a fan. How do you make that jump from being a fan to getting trained and then becoming a wrestler proper, so to speak?
I got married in 1996, and it was Thanksgiving, and I was just like sitting around being fat and lazy with the rest of the family. And there's a guy named Jackson Breeze who works for me at FGW. He was my brother-in-law. My ex-wife and his wife were sisters, so we were just hanging out watching Thursday Night Thunder, and I just made the comment like, man, I always wanted to do that. And he was like, you seriously want to do that? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I used to be affiliated with a small independent promotion, and I can take you somewhere. And I was like, no way. So that following Monday, I lived in Dayton at the time, and I drove down to Cincinnati and met him, and he took me over to Les Thatcher's Main Event Pro Wrestling Camp. And I went in and I watched training that night, and there were 6 guys in there training. They were all pretty big dudes, and I just sat there in amazement, and I watched these guys just having a practice, and they all had been doing it for a minute, so they all knew what they were doing. But I was just blown away by it. They ended up getting me into the wrestling ring, and they showed me a few bumps and how to take a few things. And I don't know, I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. And at that point in time, I was in college. I was in my senior year of college. I was racing cars on Saturdays at Killcare Drag Strip in Xenia, Ohio. I had an old Trans Am that I had been building since I was in high school. I went back to my ex-wife and I said, I have to do this wrestling, but training costs $2,500. And she was like, well, it's either the race car or wrestling. So I went out and put a for sale sign on the race car and sold it about 3 days later. Sold it for exactly $2,500. I walked in, I handed Les Thatcher $2,500 cash, and my road to wrestling began.
All right. So what real quickly, if I can fast forward just a little bit, what tricks of the trade did you take from Les now that you're training students?
Well, when I first started training people, I wasn't like a trainer like I am now. I was just sort of Les's right-hand man. He was just like, hey, Cody, run practice. I got stuff to do in the office. Go run class. So we would pretty much just do his normal standard class. Everything that we would do if he was there, we did it even though he was in the office, and I ran the class. And then over time, that became more and more and more to the point where I was pretty much running class all the time. Then HWA got the developmental contract with WWE, and we got all of the WCW and ECW talent that was acquired in the buyouts that they didn't immediately put on TV. So we went from a staff of about 18 people to a staff of 80 people overnight.
Wow.
So everybody that was under contract was required to train Monday through Thursday, and they would train in the afternoon from about 11 in the morning until about 2 in the afternoon. And then the non-contract people that were just the regular schmoes like me, we trained in the evenings. I happened to be, I don't know, blessed that I was good enough that they allowed me to train with the contract guys in the day. And then I would just stay over and I would run the non-contract training at night. So I would literally just, whatever we did that day, I would do that night. And it just sort of a repeating process. And just over the years, I just kept compiling these things in my brain, all these different drills and what I was looking for. And I asked a lot of questions and always just looking to learn, looking to find out new info, different people's takes on some things. One person sees a spot or a move this way, but the person right next to him sees it a totally different way. So I listened a lot, and a lot of things that I picked up during all that time, I still do to this very day. My warm-up drills, a lot of the drills we do in the ring are the same drills that I learned with 24 years ago.
Okay.
Well, they seem to work by the talents you've turned out, so you can't complain.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
I mean, I've been really lucky too. I've had some really amazing athletes come through my camp and guys with a real drive, will, and desire to make it to that next level. 99% of the people that come through wrestling training camp don't have that. And I've been very blessed and lucky to have several of them over the years. So, lucky me.
Have you ever had to sit down with someone, a trainee, and go, look, I don't know if this is the right avenue for you, that this is the right venture to go to?
Yeah. Do you remember the old Street Fighter game with the guy that would throw the fireball and he would yell Hadouken? All right. So I was at practice one night and I had some guys doing a match in the ring, and the one guy threw a fake fireball at the other guy and the guy sold it, and I immediately got pissed off, stopped the match, yanked everybody out of the ring, made him do a bunch of squats, and then the other guy pulled him to the side, and I was like, I don't think this is for you, man. Like, this is not a video game. Like, you got to go. And he shook my hand and he said, thanks for your opinion, and he left. And to my knowledge, he never went back to wrestling anywhere else. So, I don't know. Everybody's got their dream and everybody wants to do it, but not everybody should.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah.
So, speaking of those, that 1% that you've trained that have gone on to really, and I'm sure there's more than just the three I'm going to mention, but they're the three most famous.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, John Moxley, Eli Drake, and Sami Callihan. all of them trained under you. They've all been world champions. That's got to feel really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of other people around the world that can say I've trained 3 world champions. So it's definitely a pretty good feeling. And the fact that I'm still friends with all those guys and they still go to bat for me, and they still, whenever they do podcasts or anything, they still put me over. They still talk about training with me. Like, 3 class acts, 3 good guys, and, amazing talents in the ring. And they all work their asses off to get where they're at. And,
Sure. Moxley seems even more unhinged now that he's with AEW.
Well, I mean, they've given him, a lot of freedom there, and they've taken off the leash that he had on him. WWE could have that same guy, but they opted to mold him into what they wanted him to be instead of letting him be what he is.
We hear that from a lot of guys.
The John Moxley that you're seeing now on AEW is the same John Moxley that you got to see on the independent circuit.
Okay.
So Cody, go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, John. I'm good.
Well, since we're, I wanted to try to ask just one more question about training before we kind of maybe, and just in case Jim was going to kind of steer things to another topic, Cody. How did you feel about being named one of the top wrestling trainers by the Cauliflower Ear Club? I mean, that has to be a nice feather in the cap and has to make you feel like all your hard work is worth it.
Was totally blown away by it when they told me. I knew about 9 months before the actual Cauliflower Alley Club convention that they got a hold of me early, and I had been nominated by a couple of different people, and then their board sits down and they vote on it and everything. So when Brian Blair reached out to me and told me that I had won, I was pretty blown away by it. And then Cauliflower Alley's been around since the 60s, and they had only given out the trainer award 2 other times. They gave it out to Ron Hutchins, who trained Edge and Christian and Beth Phoenix and a lot of those guys that came out of that area up there, and then Steve Kern, who ran FCW there in Florida and trained all those guys that are now the big stars at WWE. And then there's me. So it was definitely pretty awesome to get that, and to stand up there in front of 500 people, to look around the room and see so many wrestlers and people that I grew up watching sitting in the crowd, current wrestlers, past wrestlers, and to have Moxley induct me, and then to when I did my speech, to have these people who don't know me, and people that I look up to in the wrestling industry pop for things that I'm saying, and then for them all to get up and give me a standing ovation at the end, just it was mind blowing. Like, I'm just like questioning why am I here? And very cool.
It'd have been hard to choke back the tears if I'd something like that.
Yeah, I kept telling myself, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people don't know this, but you've also guest trained at the Performance Center for WWE, which I'm kind of envious of. Not that I'd be a good trainer. I just want to go there and see how they got everything set up and what all they have to work with. And what was your experiences like that down there? Was you just down there once, or how many times did you do it?
I've been down there once, but I'm in talks with them. So if we ever get past all this virus stuff, I might get the opportunity to go back a second time.
Nice.
We'll see how that goes. It absolutely amazing. That facility is unlike any other place in the world. Like literally, when you step through the front door, it's mind blowing.
Like our Disneyland.
Yeah, for sure. And that the area that you see on TV now that they're using as the arena, like it housed 7 different rings, and the way they had it set up in there is each ring was a little more advanced than the last ring, and as the trainers, as you moved from ring to ring to ring, the trainers were a little more strict, a little Robbie Brookside was training all the young, brand new people that were either just got contracts or were people that had never been in the business before, all the way up to Terry Taylor, who was the finishing ring and running that ring, and then like Shawn Michaels would handpick a half a dozen people, and those would specifically be the people that he worked with. So, and there was the other trainers, Norman Smiley and Johnny Moss and Sarah Amato, and they just amazing, just amazing. And I was sitting at this table, the coach's room, this big high top table, about 30 feet long, with, I don't know, probably 20 really fancy, super nice, like real comfortable chair style bar stools all around it. And I'm sitting at this table, and, I got like Chris Katz to my left, who like does all the video work and stuff for NXT and for the Performance Center. And I look down the way, and you got William Regal sitting there, you got Johnny Moss sitting there, you got Shawn Michaels sitting there, and I'm just like at this table, and I'm going, I don't belong at this table. Holy crap! Like I watched all these people when I was growing up, and as Steve Carino to my right, and at least I knew him from the Indies from before he went up, so I kind of like partnered. I don't want to say partnered up, but I kind of ponied up next to him and was like, I know this guy. At least he'll be cool to me. And I've known. I won't say I've known, but I've met Steve Regal enough times that he remembered who I was and knew who I was. And Johnny Moss, he knew who I was, because before he got called up, I had been kind of talking with him, trying to go to Scotland and wrestle for him. But it was just an amazing experience. Long days, roll in there at 7:30 in the morning, get out of there 5:30 at night. And the classes were all about 2 hours long. And every app on the phone, it tells them what ring they're supposed to be in, what time they're supposed to be there. Are they supposed to be in the weight room? Are they supposed to be in a ring? Are they supposed to be in promo class? If you're a student of the game or you're a wrestler and you're trying to get better, like, that's an amazing place to be.
Yeah, that's interesting about the rings. So you're saying that they stayed in that ring until they got chosen to advance to the next one, or they just advanced throughout the day, like every day?
No, like if you started off brand new, you were in Johnny Moss's ring, or you were in I can't think of his name now. Too many names. But you're in one ring until they said you were good enough to advance up to the next ring. And you might be in 2 or 3 different rings during the course of a day. You might be in the beginner's class, the next class up, and then maybe even the next class after that, because it seemed like they had everybody in there, But like pretty much all the guys that were like doing the NXT television, they were only training once a day, and they were specifically in Terry Taylor's ring. Or specifically in Steve Carino's ring. So, like, they would kind of split between those. So, yeah, you got to work with a lot of different coaches, but it was all off of how good you were.
Very cool. See, I accomplished my goal. I try to learn something new every podcast, and I just did.
Yeah.
I didn't know they did it that way.
One of the days that I was there was the first day that EC3 was there, and they, and I could tell when he came in that while he was happy to be there, he wasn't happy that he had to train. Right. But he was in that ring with all the advanced people in Terry Taylor's ring, and and he was drilling them hard, and all those guys were going hard and everything. And it's pretty much everybody that you see on the current NXT roster now was the people that was in his class then. So
very cool. Okay.
So we've been talking a lot about the quarantine. We've been talking a lot about wrestling and training. Let's talk about a little bit of horror before we wind down. This is WrestleHorror, and Donnie is the wrestling side. I am the horror side. So, all right, horror movies, Cody. I know before we got on there, you said you liked them. First question I always throw out the gate. First, what's your favorite horror film? Jaws. Interesting.
Because it's the closest thing to real out there.
Okay.
I totally agree with Cody. Okay. I totally agree.
All right. Not what I'm used to hearing, but okay.
I mean, my real name is Jason Myers, so I've always got the Jason thing my whole life, or the Michael Myers thing my whole life. So, you know, and I like all those movies, the slasher movies and everything. You know, I can watch them, and I kind of like cheesy horror movies. I forget what the hell movie I was just watching a couple nights ago, about some flesh-eating bacteria in a camp. You know, it's terribly gory,
Cabin
but
Fever.
yeah, Cabin Fever, but not a good movie. You know what I mean?
Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah. So, but like Jaws, to me, that's real. Like I love the ocean and I love to go play in it, but I'm always looking around thinking this could be the day the shark snags me by the leg and I die.
Speaking of cheesy horror films, Jim and Chris and Shelby stayed at our house for the fair last year when we did the fair, and I flipped on this horror film. I had no idea what it was, and it was basically like a girls volleyball team. Their bus breaks down and they're like running around in the woods and desert getting chased by these killers, and like Jim and Chris was giving me this stink eye like, you son of a bitch. Like, this movie's so stupid.
Oh, this horror movie was just, I mean, it ranks it was just hard to watch.
Yeah, I forget the name of it.
When I was a teenager, back when they still had where I lived, they had a video store. It was called Take Two Video, and my dad would go up there, and it was like you rent one video for regular price, and then you got a second video for a penny. So he would always go rent like 5 or 6 of the dumbest horror movies ever, like just. And we just all have to sit there and watch them. And some of them were so bad that like 10, 20 minutes in, we couldn't do it. You got to turn it off, man. Like,
yeah, I think that's what Chris wanted me to do with that volleyball one, but I just kept it going just to torture her a little bit.
Well, you know, I'm sad to say that I was in an independent horror film recently that it was so hard to watch that Amazon dropped it.
Wow.
People were like trying to give it negative star rating.
It made you feel good, didn't it?
It was horrid. It was terrible. I mean, just none of it made sense at all.
I'm only laughing because there's some really awful stuff on Amazon, and if it was that bad that they dropped it, Jim, holy shit.
Yeah. It's so bad that I'm trying to get my name removed from the IMDb for it.
Yeah, like, no, I'm good. I don't need to be in that one.
It's terrible. Now, I was in another horror film, which I just had a bit part in, and it was fine. I mean, it was actually pretty good, called Revelation Trail. It was about zombies in the Old West. But no, I don't even want to mention the name of that movie. That's how bad it was.
Come on, man. We got to have something to look for tonight.
Yeah, good luck. It's called Ghost House: A Haunting.
Okay.
You got to have a haunting on it too. You won't find it with just Ghost House.
All right.
If you can find it, I promise you're going to message me and go, Jim, that was horrible.
Yeah.
There's a new wrestling horror film, indie film that just came out that they filmed up, and they used AIW's area. I'm trying to Google it, see what it's called. But
did they use workers from AIW, or was it just in the?
Yeah, they had some of the workers in there, and oh man, I can't think of the name. I'll find it. You guys keep talking, I'll find it.
Well, all right. Well, I'll ask 2 more questions. How about that? I got a couple here. Cody, in your wrestling career, who would you say has been your toughest opponent?
That's you have to go back a little bit to the days of HWA. There was a guy there named Matt Stryker, not the WWE's Matt Stryker with an I. This was HWA's Matt Stryker with a Y. and just an amazing pure wrestler. Like him and I had such amazing ring chemistry together, and we didn't mind. Like I'm not necessarily a huge fan of beating the shit out of each other, but we beat the shit out of each other, and neither one of us ever hurt the other one. And we've had probably like 7 or 8 hour-long matches, and just my toughest opponent and probably one of my favorite opponents. Just, you know, we never even had to talk. Like, it was like, hey, we're going to wrestle an hour tonight. Who's going over? I don't know. All right, well, I'll see you out there. Cool. And that's the end of it. And, you know, we would go out, do our thing, and decide everything on the fly, just listening to the people.
Yeah, a lost art with some wrestlers, listening to the people and just going with the flow.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's how I teach my kids. I don't teach anybody memorizing till they've been there for a few months. I'm like, literally, you can sit down and memorize your phone number in 10 minutes. You can memorize a spot for a match in 10 minutes. The true art is listening to the people and judging everything that you're doing off them. Which, you know, circle back to the beginning, the empty arena matches, when you don't have that crowd there, then, you know, you have to use your imagination a little bit and imagine that you were in the crowd and what would pop you at that moment in time and what would make you invested in the match. And like I said, this is if this becomes the norm for a while, this is where you're going to see the people that can really truly wrestle versus the people that can't, or all they can do is memorize.
All right, my final question. I think everybody that steps between the ropes gets hurt. And as far as I know, you've been pretty lucky. You haven't had any serious injuries, but what is the worst injury that you've sustained?
Broken neck in 2003. I have a plate and 2 screws in my C6 vertebrae.
Okay, I did not know that. 2003 would have been HWA time?
Yep.
Oh, how did that happen, may I ask?
There were 2 guys. They were their names were Jason and Johnny Riggs. They were twin brothers. They were both about 6'5". They both were on either side of me, and they kind of both had me hooked like a rock bottom. And then they picked me up and put me over their head in a vertical suplex, hold me like that. And then they were supposed to swing me back through in between them, and they were going to take belly bumps, and I was supposed to take a back bump. But they swung me around so hard that I did a complete rotation. I landed on my forehead and my toes.
Oh.
And then the ensuing part of it, like when I landed, it crushed my head down this way, cracked my sternum, broke my neck, flopped over. I had a manager at the time. He ran around the ring. He was like, Jesus Christ, are you all right? And I was like, I think I just broke my neck. Grabbed my arm, pulled me to the side. And he pulled me to the side of the ring. And I laid there for a minute. And the other guys, they knew I was hurt. It was a tag match. And they kept going with the match. And slowly I started feeling everything come back. Everything got hot, and I felt everything. And I was able to get up and complete the match, the little bit that I had left to do. But then I walked through the curtain, I collapsed. They took me out on a backboard. About 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, I came back and we had to shoot a little angle for TV as to how my neck got broke. So I was feuding with Matt Stryker at the time. So I was able to get in there and take a kick to the face from him. And I took just a real ugly bump. So we always told people that's what broke my neck. And then I had surgery, and about 4 months after my surgery, they told me, you'll be lucky if you ever walk again, right? You'll never wrestle. I was like, I walked right out of that hospital. I came back, told Matt Stryker, we go 4 months after surgery. Him and I did 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
So.
Very cool. Hey, back on the horror film topic, it was called Power Bomb. I had a complete brain fart. So, and it had.
I think I remember seeing that floating around on Facebook.
Yeah, and they filmed some of it in AIW at their old center, and it had Matt Cross and Britt Baker and Gregory Iron and Justice and those guys were in it. But I've only got to watch like the first 10 or 15 minutes, and I had to turn it off. But I'm gonna finish checking it out. But I guess
Yeah.
somebody, it's an obsessed fan, and he kidnaps M-Dog or something like that. But I'm gonna check it out and see how it is.
But hopefully it's as good as Kayfabe the movie.
Oh yeah, that was nice.
Oh man, wow! This has been a very lively episode, and Cody, some great stories. You know, I'm sure some people probably get tired of me talking about this because it involves my daughter. And you know, I've been proud of her since the day she signed up for your school. We just got to break her of one thing: she does not like the camera.
Well, she's gonna have to get used to that.
That's what I told her.
Yeah, she's come a long way. You know, she's working hard, and she's getting better every time she's there. The only thing I really want to break her of is smiling. She
Okay.
smiles non-stop. It doesn't matter what she's doing. She's giggling. She's smiling. I'm like, you're getting your ass kicked. Why are you laughing?
Well, okay.
She could be working on her Joker gimmick. Like every time there's pain, he starts giggling, or Riddler, whichever one it was. They giggle every time they started getting hurt.
Okay, so I will just leave that there. But I know Shelby really enjoys training with you, and she's ready to get back into it. So hopefully, you know, you guys can start doing that again.
I heard you broke her of her smart mouth and her back talk, so that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, it was like one of those days at practice where she was just really like getting on my nerves, and I was like, I had like a wrist lock on her or something, and I pulled her up real close, and I was like, you are on the verge of pissing me off to the point where you guys are going to squat like 1,000 squats, and I'm going to blame it all on you. So if you don't want everybody in this class to be pissed off at you, you better shut up.
Nice.
Little mob justice there.
There you go.
Hey,
it worked.
When you get her back in the ring again, can you do that and tell her to quit talking back to me?
Yeah.
But okay, this has been awesome. It is almost, we've been doing this for about 50 minutes, and I have no complaints. It's been great. But Cody, thank you so much for joining us. And you know, the funny thing is, on Monday when we got the wires crossed, my wife Chris said, "Well, you tell Cody since he got his wires crossed, he's got to do 100 indie squats."
Well, all right.
He's like, I'll give you 3. That's it.
But anyway,
Tell her that I do 100 every morning, every day as it is.
well,
Right.
there you go. I can tell her you already did them. So how can people find out more about you, more about the school, more about FGW, social media, all those kind of outlets? What's the best way for people to find out more about you, Cody?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Instagram and Twitter, I think, are at Cody F and Hawk. The Facebook is /wrestler.CodyHawk. So, or you can just type it in. I'm sure I'll come up. There is another Cody Hawk out there in the wrestling world, though. So he's in the South. So if you ever Google Cody, there's 1,000 matches for me and like 2 matches from him. So don't get us confused. So you got those 3 social medias. Future Great Wrestling is also on all of those different social medias. There's the Future Great Wrestling YouTube channel where we have Shockwave right now. That's our hour-long program that we put out every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We've been doing best of episodes here the last few weeks because of the shutdown, but hopefully soon there'll be some brand new matches, even if they have to be empty arena. And like the Don't Rush video, we're doing a bunch of different video products like that, getting them out there. And as far as training or the wrestling school, it's Hawks Pro Wrestling Training Camp. You know, you can get a hold of me through any of the social medias. And if the zombie apocalypse ever lifts and we're able to get going again, you know, that's where we'll be. If not, I'm moving to Florida.
What part?
Somewhere where there's a beach and it doesn't get below 70 degrees.
Oh, okay. So south.
Clearwater area.
Okay. All right. I'm familiar with that area. But anyway, Cody, thanks again for taking the time to talk with us here on Wrestle Horror. John, Donnie, any last minute comments?
No, just appreciate Cody taking some time out of his busy schedule to chat with us. So
Yep. Appreciate picking his brain. That's what we like to do.
And I apologize for Monday, guys. Double booked myself, I guess.
See, look, you're still busy. You ain't even allowed to wrestle. Look at you.
Thank you guys for having me on, man. I love talking shop and talking wrestling, and like I go down in that rabbit hole, and I could literally talk for days on it. So anytime you ever want to get onto a specific subject in any of the things in wrestling that I've been a part of, we can definitely dive into that hole.
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
Yes,
Yeah,
we'd
most
love to have
definitely.
you back. We'd love to have you back sometime. But we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks again. This is the Wrestle Horror Podcast with special guest Cody Hawk. I just like saying Cody Hawk. And look him up if you want to find out more about him, about the school, about FGW. I'm Meathook Jim, and we are out.